Welcome to Supernatural Signals, where the screen meets the spirits. In today's video, we're diving into one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in American history: the disappearance of the Sodder children. What started as a tragic house fire on Christmas Eve in 1945 quickly spiraled into decades of unanswered questions, suspicious circumstances, and a family's relentless search for the truth. So, was it a tragic accident or something far more sinister? Let's get into it. On Christmas Eve, 1945, the Sodder family home in Fayetteville, West Virginia, was alive with warmth, laughter, and the glow of the holiday spirit. George and Jenny Sodder, Italian immigrants who had built a life and family of 10 children, watched as 9 of their kids celebrated late into the night. The younger ones begged to stay up and play with their new toys, and Jenny agreed as long as they remembered to turn off the lights and lock the door before bed. At around 1 a.m., the peace shattered. Jenny awoke to the sound of something hitting the roof, following by a rolling noise. And then moments later, she smelled smoke. Flames had erupted from George's office downstairs, and in a panic, she screamed for him and their children. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children managed to escape, but 5 children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, were still inside. Now, George tried to re enter the burning house to save them. He smashed a window to get back in, slicing his arm, but then the dense smoke and heat blocked him from reaching the stairway. It was already engulfed in flames. In a desperate rush, he ran outside to grab the ladder that was propped against the house. But mysteriously, it was missing. He then attempted to climb up to the children's room by stacking barrels, but couldn't reach. His next plan was to drive one of his local coal trucks close enough to climb onto the roof. But again, bizarrely, both of his trucks, which had worked perfectly the day before, refused to start. They tried to call the fire department, but the phone line was dead, and one of the older children ran to the neighbor's house to call for help. Another driver passing by saw the flames and also tried to alert the authorities. But despite multiple attempts, help was nowhere in sight. It wasn't until 8 a.m. that the fire trucks finally arrived at the Sodder home, a staggering 7 hours after the fire began, even though the fire station was only 2.5 miles away. By then, the house had collapsed into smoldering ash, and the 5 children were nowhere to be found. The authorities ruled the fire accidental, blaming faulty wiring. But the Sodders weren't convinced. The house's electricity had been inspected recently and was in good working order. Witnesses claimed that they saw a man stealing a block and tackle from the Sodder property early that night, possibly explaining the missing ladder. A telephone repairman later confirmed that the lines had been cut, not burned. And then there were the sightings. One woman said she saw the missing children in a car driving away during the fire. Others reported seeing them at a rest stop weeks later. Either way, George and Jenny never stopped searching. They erected a massive billboard along Route 16, displaying the children's faces and asking, what was their fate? Decades later, they received a mysterious photo in the mail of a man looking strikingly like their son Louis, now grown, with a cryptic message scrawled on the back. It only deepened the mystery. There were no remains, no answers, just an enduring question that still haunts the true crime and mystery circles to this day. So, what really happened to the Sodder children that night on Christmas night? Let's dive into a few key facts and information about the case and see if we can come up with some of our own theories. In the days following the fire, local authorities declared the case closed. The Fayetteville fire chief stated that the 5 missing Stoddard children had most likely perished in the blaze, that their bodies were completely cremated by the intense heat. But that didn't even make sense. Jenny Sodder couldn't accept it. She had read extensively about house fires and learned that even the most extreme cases, some bone fragments, especially from children, should remain. Yet no bones were found in the ashes, not a single one. Even stranger, there was no smell of burning flesh during or after the fire, something that would have been noticeable with 5 bodies inside. These inconsistencies haunted the Sodders. There was also the chilling silence. During the chaos of the fire, from my research, none of the children inside were heard screaming or calling for help. No cries, no footsteps, nothing. It was as if they vanished before the fire even fully took hold. Despite all this, the county coroner quickly ruled the fire an accident, attributing it to faulty wiring. But both George and Jenny knew that couldn't be true. The home's wiring had recently been inspected and improved. On top of that, the Christmas lights were still glowing as the fire spread, suggesting the electrical system was working, at least in the beginning. They began to suspect something else, that their children hadn't died in the fire after all, but they were kidnapped. To understand why the Sodders held so firmly to this theory, you have to look at George Sodder's past. Born in Italy, he immigrated to the United States as a teenager and built a new life in West Virginia. Over the years, he became a successful businessman, owning a trucking company and a devoted family man. But George was also outspoken, especially about his political beliefs. He was a fierce critic of Benito Mussolini, and he wasn't quiet about it, even within the close knit Italian immigrant community. This, of course, made him enemies. And October of 1945, another man offered life insurance for his children. When George refused, the man stormed off, shouting that your house is going up in smoke and your children are going to be destroyed. It wasn't just talk. George had been warned. These threats, combined with the strange events the night of the fire, the missing ladder, disabled trucks, cut phone lines, and the children's complete disappearance, led the Sodders to the terrifying conclusion. The fire had been a cover up. Their children hadn't died that night, they were kidnapped. Yeah. In the decades that followed the fire, the Sodders never stopped searching. George passed away in 1969, Jenny in 1989, both heartbroken, still without answers. But their surviving children carried the torch, some even continuing to investigate well into the 2000s. For them, this wasn't just a cold case, it was personal, painful, and an ever present event. One of the most visible symbols of their desperation and hope was a massive billboard they erected along Route 16, not far from where their house once stood. It displayed the faces and names of the 5 missing children along with the plea. What was their face? Kidnapped, murdered, or are they still alive? For decades, the sign loomed over the roadside, drawing attention from travelers and the media alike. It became both a memorial and a message. The Sodders had not given up. The most chilling clue came in 1967, over 2 decades after the fire. George and Jenny received an envelope in the mail with no return address, postmarked from Kentucky. Inside was a photograph of a young man in his 20s. On the back, scrawled in shaky handwriting, were the words Louis Sodder, period. I love brother Frankie, period. Lil boys, period. A90132 or 35. The man in the photo bore a striking resemblance to their missing son, Lewis. Same dark eyes, same strong jawline. Even the family members were startled by how much he looked like an older version of the boy they had lost. Hope surged again, but so did the mystery. George and Jenny hired another private investigator to go to Kentucky and look into the origins of the letter. But the man vanished. He was never heard from again. To this day, the disappearance of the Sodder children remains one of the most chilling, unsolved mysteries in American history. No remains were ever found, no conclusive evidence ever surfaced. Just questions, grief, and a family who refused to let go of the belief that their children had been stolen from them, and that someone out there knew the truth. Personally, from the evidence given, I don't think they died in the fire. I don't think it was necessarily supernatural activity, though, like some people speculate. My best assumption is that they might have been kidnapped, like the parents thought all along. Several pieces of evidence support this idea. The missing ladder, the phone line being cut, the family's cars mysteriously refusing to start, all feel intentional, like someone was preventing the family from intervening. And add to the fact that no remains were found, and it's easy to see why this theory gained tractions. Moreover, the lack of physical evidence that the children died in the fire, and the suspicious political atmosphere at the time, and of course, the strange photo mailed to the family all suggest something deeper. That photo with the handwritten note and the young man resembling Louis Sodder had stuck with me. People say that ears are like fingerprints, and even though the ear isn't fully visible, the outward shape of his ears look a lot like Lewis's in his childhood photo. Lewis would have been around 9 years old when he disappeared, and if he was raised in isolation or without proper education, that could explain the strange handwriting and misspelling in the note. Additionally, I think it's very clear that the parents at least really truly believe that their kids were kidnapped and this wasn't just some kind of hoax brought by them. They spent so much money and time trying to find their children that to me there was just no way that would be a hoax on their behalf. So what do you think? Were the children kidnapped? Was it all just a tragic accident? Or is the truth something far darker, hidden beneath decades of confusion, lies, and unanswered questions? Let me know in the comments, and if you've heard of this case before or have any theories of your own, I'd love to hear them. And if you're into mysteries like this, unsolved cases, paranormal events, strange history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram at supernatural_singles for more. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your singles tuned into the strange and mysterious. Thanks for watching.